Live.
Hello, all our fans. It's Monday. I am Old New Dude, and he is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and this is Eddard 7. Woohoo, Game of Thrones. Um, this will be the only show this week. Richard has plans, so we'll try to make the most of it, and then we'll see y'all again, hopefully the following Monday. But as
Yep.
usual, it is the brains of the operation going with what he saw in the chapter. And then I'll just jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then.
Oh, thank you again for the consistent compliment. I
It's
think
the truth.
you have plenty to add, but that's quite all right. All right.
I have my moments.
I stood last vigil for him myself, Sir Barristan Selmy said as they looked down at the body in the back of the cart. He had no one else. Mother in the Vale, I'm told. Well, he might not get a song, but he gets Barristan the Bold for a last vigil.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. Eddard Stark looked at his face and wondered if it had been for his sake that the boy had died, slain by a Lannister bannerman before Ned could speak to him. Could that be mere happenstance? He supposed he would never know. Hugh was John Arryn's squire for 4 years, Selmy went on. The king knighted him before he rode north, in John's memory. The lad wanted it desperately, yet I fear he was not ready. Yeah, I think Barristan's right here. So he couldn't even put on his armor properly, and Sandor noted that, and noted that Gregor likes to kill. Nobody really needed to arrange this. This was a guy who was completely incompetent going against a killer.
I have my doubts on that. I tend to disagree a little bit. All it would take would be Littlefinger's people saying the right thing in the right ear to arrange it. I mean, it doesn't have to. I agree 100%.
Right. But Littlefinger could have wanted to increase it, especially if the real problem is the fostering of Sweet Robin, which I think we both agree it really is, right?
Yeah.
Him trying to further obfuscate things by arranging the lists so that Gregor meets Sir Hugh, knowing that that's likely to lead him to his death. Right? He doesn't have to tell Gregor to kill him. He just has to arrange for him to fight him, because an incompetent squire going against Gregor is almost certain death anyway.
All it would take would be like Luther Brune, that we know is in the jousting area, or one of the other free riders from the Fingers, just to say one or two words to get an already pissed off man even madder.
It's possible.
It's possible. We'll
never know, as Ned says, right? There's enough here to believe that it could be happenstance. But it's also true that given the motive of the true killer, I confess, was actually about Sweet Robin and not about the Lannisters in the first place. Throwing more suspicion at the Lannisters would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it works in Littlefinger's favor for it to be the Lannister bannerman that kills the guy. But yeah, like I said, you could be 100% right.
Yes, either way.
Yes,
and we'll never know, as Neb says.
we might know later on. We might hear Littlefinger bragging about the entire game he's played this whole time, and like the bad guys in the movies just rambling like I ramble and get us off topic all the time. He could be rambling and just doing his monologue from just all the little pieces he did all the way through. I'm hoping we get that, but I don't think we are.
Speaking of getting off topic, I'm about to get us way off topic here with this next one. Ned turned to the woman beside the cart, shrouded in gray, face hidden but for her eyes. The silent sisters prepared men for the grave, and it was ill fortune to look on the face of death. So this really would be a great place for Joanna to hide. Plus, she would be near her best friend, Princess Septa Scalera Martell. So I love Tudo's explanation for Septa Scalera as Duran's mother. But we've got Edric named after Eddard. We've got Rickon named after Rickard. So I don't see any reason to believe that she needed to change her name. He claims that she changed her name to Scalera to obscure things as part of his explanation. I don't think she needed to. Right? I think she just kept her name. Meanwhile, I love the Joanna's alive theory, but we agree that Quaithe is Ashara, and there's lots of hints that Joanna is a silent sister in King's Landing, including Tywin's smiles all belonging to her and her alone.
Yeah, that's like one of those key sentences. It just kind of makes it all fall together.
Yeah. I included this next part with the armor just because it's funny. Ned only needed a glance to understand the difficulty. The boys are not at fault, he told the king. You're too fat for your armor, Robert. Robert Baratheon took a long swallow of beer, tossed the empty horn onto his sleeping furs, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and said darkly, Fat? Fat, is it? Is that how you speak to your king? He let go his laughter, sudden as a storm. Ah, damn you, Ned. Why are you always right? The squires smiled nervously until the king turned on them. You, yes, both of you, you heard the hand. The king is too fat for his armor. Go find Sir Aaron the Centaur. Tell him I need the breastplate stretcher. Now, what are you waiting for? The boys tripped over each other in their haste to be quit of the tent. Robert managed to keep a stern face until they were gone. Then he dropped back into a chair, shaking with laughter. Sir Barristan Selmy chuckled with him. Even Eddard Stark managed to smile.
That's just freaking awesome. I know the guy that was his name, Mark Addy or whatever, that played Robert Baratheon.
Yep.
Wasn't tall enough or big enough or any of that, but he did the voice and the facial expressions.
Yeah.
Is anytime I see Robert in the book, his name that's just automatically pops in there.
Sure.
Awesome actor.
Yep. The woman tried to forbid me to fight in the melee. She's sulking in the castle now. Damn her. Your sister would never have shamed me like that. You never knew Lyanna as I did, Robert, Ned told him. You saw her beauty, but not the iron underneath. She would have told you that you have no business in the melee.
On that sentence, as soon as I read it, I just automatically think, remember the description we're given of the Stannis brothers? Steel, iron, and copper. Well, iron would put her more into the Stannis category if we take that meaning here to mean the same as iron that Stannis was. So.
Right. Sure. Yeah, it's interesting to think of it that way. Sure. I mean, it's in the context of the true steel.
Right.
Sir Barristan Selmy spoke up. Your Grace, he said, it is not seemly that the king should ride into the melee. It would not be a fair contest. Who would dare strike you? Robert seemed honestly taken aback. Why, all of them, damn it. If they can, and the last man standing will be you, Ned finished. He saw at once that Selmy had hit the mark. The dangers of the melee were only a savor to Robert, but this touched on his pride. Sir Barristan is right. There's not a man in the Seven Kingdoms who would dare risk your displeasure by hurting you. The king rose to his feet, his face flushed. Are you telling me those prancing cravens will let me win? For a certainty, Ned said. And Sir Barristan Selmy bowed his head in silent accord. So I just think Barristan is great.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people who hate on him. They think he's complicit and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I don't fault Davos for his much greater complicity in the similar crimes of Stannis. Right. Yeah. And I don't fault Barristan. I mean, the power dynamic and so forth, and then combine that with the fact that in Jaime's chapter, he thinks about how the king was carefully hiding his evil plans from the other Kingsguard except for him. Yeah. And so the idea that, I mean, yes, it's true that Darry allowed the rape, and it's true that the White Bull chastised Jaime for judging. Don't judge the king, basically.
Right.
But other than that, I just don't see it as big a crime as people make it out to be, that he was complicit in the Mad King's madness or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard to do when you read the books and go, "What would I have done?" Especially as a 52-year-old man, ex-military. I'm very adamant on the way I think things should be. I'm narcissistic a little bit, but the format for what they live in is set out so plain, and defiance of that system or rebellion against that system is dealt with swiftly and not very nicely. So, I mean, granted, you or I would say something, but you got to stop and think. The Mad King would rip your tongue out in a heartbeat, cook it, and feed it back to you.
And people make excuses for Davos, like, oh well, his whole family depends upon Stannis and all this. And it's like, you think that's not true for Barristan? Anyway.
Yeah. Also, the Ned picking up on what Barristan was saying goes back to us talking about. I mean, granted, he's not Sherlock Holmes, the detective, but I mean, he plays the game.
But Barristan is brilliant here, and yes, Ned is smart enough to pick up on it right away. But it's really a brilliant move by Barristan.
Yes, it is.
Drink, your king commands it. So we discussed this line when Viserys tried to convince Jorah to attack the Dothraki. So obeying this line won't kill Ned quite that quickly. Jon said the realm needed an heir. Cersei Lannister would be a good match, he told me. She would bind Lord Tywin to me should Viserys Targaryen ever try to win back his father's throne. The king shook his head. I love that old man, I swear it. But now I think he was a bigger fool than Moon Boy. Oh, Cersei is lovely to look at, truly, but cold. The way she guards her cunt, you'd think she had all the gold of Casterly Rock between her legs. So this is a hint that Cersei does not let Robert impregnate her.
Right. But we're given examples of quickening on the wedding night. We hear it with Catelyn and Ned, and it's not the first time in the story. So I think the only time that Robert impregnated her was their wedding night, and that's Gendry, and I mean all that stuff.
Well, she didn't even want him horned at that point, right?
Right. I mean, she was what, 14, 15, 16. Granted, it wasn't Jaime or it wasn't Prince Rhaegar, but I mean, this was a guy that men wanted to be and girls wanted to do.
It's not until he says Lyanna to her that she gets mad, and then she tells Jaime, "I want him horned." Right. So the implication is that she was okay until after they did the deed. He called Lyanna's name, and that's when she got mad.
I mean, granted, she was still a Lannister and raised the Lannister way in this story, but I don't think she was as cold-hearted. I mean, she wasn't yet. Right. I mean,
no, she was open to the concept of this marriage.
Right.
Okay, and in terms of heirs in House of the Dragon, we talked about this a little bit last time, right? Hysterical Function on Reddit has mentioned the next male heir after Tommen would be Stannis and then Doran Martell. Stannis is actively rebelling and might be dead or presumed dead. So if Tommen dies, we could have an interesting House of the Dragon situation with Myrcella potentially passed over for being female. Doran's favorite heir is a female. Myrcella is married to his male heir. Arianne is married to the last male of the previous line. It could make the second Dance of the Dragon somewhat reminiscent of the original dance.
Yeah.
Alternatively, even if Doran hasn't actually been placed on the Iron Throne and it goes straight to a question of Myrcella versus Aegon, there could be sort of some references to the fact that, well, really it should go to the male heir, but that would be Trystane is like next in line anyway. Whether or not Doran's dead, it could be like, and then Arianne say, no, I would be his chosen heir, and then they're like, I mean, you could see the whole making a big deal out of the whole skip a female, don't skip a female kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really funny if Myrcella wound up getting a dragon taking on Aegon, where you would have Rhaegar's only surviving son against Aerys' double biological granddaughter.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100% on that one. Also, George likes to repeat stuff anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, this situation being changed slightly or just being a little bit different is right in line with just about everything he does in this story as far as repeating.
And even if you don't take the time to do the whole, council putting Doran in charge or whatever, you could still just sort of allude to the fact, well, really, Trystane should be like the next male after Doran, and that makes me, even if you skip me as the female, but then she'd be like, oh, but First off, I'm Duran's chosen heir. And secondly, it's all invalid anyway because Aegon is the rightful king. You know, you could get them kind of arguing all four of these two power couples claims.
Well, I mean, everybody has their opinions on why George is running a little behind. That one thing right there, a repeat of the Dance of Dragons, could possibly be why things are taking so long, because he wants. It's got to be set up. It's got to be moved into motion. And I mean, granted, the next book is Wins the Winter, and we might not see it completely end in Wins the Winter, but I can honestly see we get the beginnings of the Dance of the Dragon 2, and it's actually going to take up the last half of one book and the first half of the other book. Or, I mean, I can see him having a hard time trying to put that into the story and not take up 3 books to do the second Dance of the Dragon.
Yep, and folks, you heard it here first. We like Marcella to be a dragon rider.
There you go. I'm all in on that one.
You know what stops me? The thought of Joffrey on the throne, with Cersei standing behind him, whispering in his ear, "My son. How could I have made a son like that, Ned?" So Robert's not entirely clueless as to what Joffrey is. Ned knew what he was way back in Cat 2.
Yes.
John despaired of me often enough, yet I grew into a good king. Robert looked at Ned and scowled at his silence. You might speak up and agree now, you know. Your Grace, Ned began carefully. Robert slapped Ned on the back. Say that I'm a better king than Ares and be done with it. You never could lie for love nor honor, Ned Stark. I'm still young, and now that you're here with me, things will be different. We'll make this a reign to sing of, and damn the Lannisters to 7 hells. I smell bacon. Who do you think our champion will be today? Have you seen Mace Tyrell's boy? The Knight of Flowers, they call him? Now there's a son any man would be proud to own too. Last tourney, he dumped the Kingslayer on his golden rump. You ought to have seen the look on Cersei's face. I laughed till my sides hurt. Renly says he has this sister, a maid of 14, lovely as a dawn. So more clues of Renly preparing for the reveal and inevitable war.
Yeah. That I smell bacon is his squirrel. Freaking hilarious.
Yeah. This was the boy he had grown up with, he thought. This was the Robert Baratheon he'd known and loved. If he could prove that the Lannisters were behind the attack on Bran, prove that they had murdered Jon Arryn, this man would listen. Then Cersei would fall, and the Kingslayer with her. And if Lord Tywin dared to rouse the West, Robert would smash him as he had smashed Rhaegar Targaryen on the Trident. He could see it all so clearly. That breakfast tasted better than anything Eddard Stark had eaten in a long time. And afterward, his smiles came easier and more often until it was time for the tournament to resume. So things are looking up.
Yes.
Alas.
The only way that works out is if Robert is still alive. And you don't have Stark and Lannister trouble without any proof, and the topic of Targaryens don't come up. So you had 3 things going against you.
Yep. Sansa said, I knew the Hound would win. Littlefinger overheard. If you know who's going to win the second match, speak up now before Lord Renly plucks me clean, he called to her. Ned smiled. A pity the imp is not here with us, Lord Renly said. I should have won twice as much. So there's some more hints at Tyrion's innocence. We actually, the hints are all placed, or a lot of these hints are placed before Tyrion makes his closing statement in the following chapter, right? So he hasn't actually told us that he would never bet against his family. That actually comes at the very end of the next chapter.
Right. And that's another one of those that hey, Ned's smarter than people give him credit, but he's not Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
In that conversation, the dagger and how the dagger got swapped hands and all that, it wouldn't. I mean, I would have never picked it up sitting there either.
Yep. Ned saw she was wearing the rose that Sir Loras had given her yesterday. Jory had told him about that as well. So I wonder if Ned and or Jory saw the parallel that we mentioned last time, right? The fact that Littlefinger immediately compares it to naming a Queen of Beauty and so forth.
Yeah. And there's also the I can't remember who it is. The Brandon's Bastards or whatever it was. That there's a possibility that Loras is a son of Brandon. I forget who did it. It was like several different people. Anytime there was the horsemanship is the clue. There's the clue to.
And since he's meant to be, no, I don't know about that.
So I mean, he's meant to. He's trying to get his younger sister.
Yeah, I don't think I buy it. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's a really good video.
Yeah, I kind of see the argument there, but the main reason I don't buy it is that part of the point of the parallels is that he's supposed to be basically a twin to his sister, right? And in fact, he looks more like his sister than Jaime looks like Cersei, according to I think it's Cersei.
Yeah,
Cersei is observing them and says,
think about it this way: if they're parallel to Jaime and Cersei, and Jaime and Cersei are
they
not
should be bastards,
legitimate,
but I guess that they should be bastards, but the idea that given that they're not twins, the idea that Brandon was carrying on this long-term affair with, I don't buy that.
Like I said, it's a really good video. I just can't remember who did it.
All right. Gregor was striding down the lists towards Sir Loras Tyrell, his bloody sword clutched in his fist. "Stop him!" Ned shouted, but his words were lost in the roar. Everyone else was yelling as well, and Sansa was crying. It all happened so fast. The Knight of Flowers was shouting for his own sword as Sir Gregor knocked his squire aside and made a grab for the reins of his horse. The mare scented blood and reared. Loras Tyrell kept his seat, but barely. Sir Gregor swung his sword, a savage two-handed blow that took the boy in the chest and knocked him from the saddle. The courser dashed away in panic as Sir Loras lay stunned in the dirt. But as Gregor lifted his sword for the killing blow, a rasping voice warned, "Leave him be," and a steel-clad hand wrenched him away from the boy. So, Clegane Bowl, get hype.
Yeah. Well, I mean, granted, the way Ned tells it, you got the Baratheons that are the 6'5" kind of people. I think Renly's a little bit shorter than that. And then you got the Hound. I believe it's the 6'8", 6'9", maybe 6'10" type figure. Then you got an almost 8-foot mountain that got spun around from his intended target with all his force.
Wrenched him away. That makes it sound like he literally lifted him out and away. Well, he's supposed to be 400 pounds.
I know. One hand spun this man away from all his anger, and then not to mention all the damn blows that the Hound either blocks or changes the direction on. The Hound is badass. Man. Go ahead. Sorry, I got goosebumps.
And one of the things that's always struck me as a little strange is that we're later on we're going to be told by the elder brother that the Hound was obsessed with killing his own brother, but the Hound is very much honor bound, as we're about to see here, right? So thrice Ned saw Sir Gregor aim savage blows at the Hound's head helmet, yet not once did Sandor send a cut at his brother's unprotected face. It was the king's voice that put an end to it, the king's voice and 20 swords. Jon Arryn had told them that a commander needs a good battlefield voice, and Robert had proved the truth of that on the Trident. He used that voice now. "Stop this madness," he boomed, "in the name of your king." The Hound went to one knee. Sir Gregor's blow cut air, and at last he came to his senses. He dropped his sword and glared at Robert, surrounded by his Kingsguard and a dozen other knights and guardsmen. Wordlessly, he turned and strode off, shoving past Barristan Selmy. "Let him go," Robert said, and as quickly as that, it was over. So Robert chooses peace, which we've already discussed is largely unfulfilling. But that, I suppose it's praiseworthy to de-escalate, even though I kind of wish he hadn't.
One thing on this, in military boot camp, when you first get there, a lot of them will have you screaming at the top of your lungs as loud as you can when you're answering or asking questions, that type of situation. Anytime you're talking to your drill sergeant and all that, and you lose your voice, you sound like a mouse, and then it comes back. But every time it comes back louder. That's the reason they have you yell, is to where, because my kids can't stand it. Because if I'm in my little room right here, if I do my yell voice 2 stories up on the other side of the house, they can hear me clear as a bell. I mean, it's amazing the difference in the volume you can get after all that damn yelling. And it's usually the first, I want to say 3 weeks, 4 weeks of boot camp. And then they kind of ease off on that. They've done as much as they wanted to your vocal cords. But sorry.
No. That makes sense. You know, I mean, he's talking about training for battle voice and so forth, right? But
right. And you got the crowd. You got everybody stopping when the king did it, but when Ned tried to do it, Ned doesn't have the same battle voice.
Drowned out. Yeah.
I mean, that just means that the king is freaking loud as all get out.
Yep. And if you want to see the king do that, you can watch any of the early Direwolf City episodes for the first like 5 minutes, and they always have that great clip, right?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. I gotta get a shirt, man. I'll order it today.
That afternoon, a boy named Anguy, an unheralded commoner from the Dornish marches, won the archery competition, outshooting Sir Balon Swan and Jalabar Jo at 100 paces after all the other bowmen had been eliminated at the shorter distances. Ned sent Alan to seek him out and offer him a position with the Hands Guard, but the boy was flushed with wine and victory and riches undreamed of, and he refused. So Anguy, also known as Archer, will sign up when Ned sends out the Brotherhood without banners. So he may have turned Ned down here, but he does appear to be on board with serving Ned here a little bit later.
Yeah.
The melee went on for.
I'm gonna step and grab my book real quick. Keep on going. I apologize, but there's something I wanted to say.
All right. The melee went on for 3 hours. Nearly 40 men took part, free riders and hedge knights and new-made squires in search of reputation. They fought with blunted weapons in a chaos of mud and blood, small troops fighting together and then turning on each other as alliances formed and fractured, until only one man was left standing. The victor was the Red Priest, Thoros of Myr, a madman who shaved his head and fought with a flaming sword. He had won melees before. The fire sword frightened the mounts of the other riders, and nothing frightened Thoros. So I'm surprised that Thoros' sword lasts long enough, but apparently sometimes it does, because he's apparently won melees before. And he is definitely a force while the fire lasts.
Which is foreshadowing the Valerian steel sword having a flame on it, because it wouldn't get it. I mean, it's definitely foreshadowing to what we get later on in the book.
Right. How was your dancing? I'm sore all over, Arya reported happily, proudly displaying a huge purple bruise on her leg. You must be a terrible dancer, Sansa said doubtfully. Actually, she's making significant progress. and here we go. Arya stood on one leg. She was getting much better at that of late. Syrio says that every hurt is a lesson, and every lesson makes you better. Ned frowned. The man Syrio Forel had come with an excellent reputation, and his flamboyant Braavosi style was well suited to Arya's slender blade. Yet still, a few days ago, she'd been wandering around with a swatch of black silk tied over her eyes. Syrio was teaching her to see with her ears and her nose and her skin, she told him. Before that, he had her doing spins and backflips. Are you certain you want to persist in this? She nodded. Tomorrow we're going to catch cats. Cats, Ned sighed. Perhaps it was a mistake to hire this Braavosi. If you like, I'll ask Jory to take over your lessons, or I might have a quiet word with Sir Barristan. He was the finest sword in the Seven Kingdoms in his youth. I don't want them, Arya said. I want Syrio. Ned ran his fingers through his hair. Any decent master-at-arms could give Arya the rudiments of slash and parry without this nonsense of blindfolds, cartwheels, and hopping about on one leg, but he knew his youngest daughter well enough to know there was no arguing with that stubborn jut of jaw. As you wish, he said. Surely she would grow tired of this soon. Try to be careful. I will, she promised solemnly as she hopped smoothly from her right leg to her left. So Arya can tell this is the correct path for her, and probably no intervention is required.
Yes. And the blindfold, the black silk blindfold.
See through your skin?
Bingo.
Skin changer.
Well, I mean, we get Varamir Sixskin saying that a warg can sense another warg. And whatever Syrio Forel is, he can look through a glamour and see through it. So there's something more to the man than just a normal person. Now, is he sensing something in Arya and then trying to do some of the same tricks that the House of Black and White does when they blind her to open up her third eye, or however you want to talk it, skin changing? But I mean, Syrio Forel is definitely using some House of the Black and White techniques on Arya. So I know.
Yep.
There's people on both sides of the fence that Syrio Forel is Jaqen H'ghar. I don't know where I fall on it. I know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, either way, this character is dead for Arya and for us, but it is interesting, right? And the Hound is extremely dubious that a slow knight could catch this guy if he's really any good. And he announces that the first sword doesn't run, but speaking with your voice isn't necessarily the same thing as what you do. And he may be deliberately misleading. He specifically says the guy's slow. He says, "You're really slow for a knight," right? So why would he purposely observe this guy as an extremely slow knight and then loudly announce that he is not going to run away? It's an interesting argument. Let's put it that way.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Nope.
Also, before we get too far, this is back when they're talking about Renly. I laughed till my sides hurt. Renly says he has this sister, a maid of 14, lovely as a dawn. So I look for her to have some major role later on.
And is that somewhat referencing a Shara there?
It's possible. Oh, I didn't even take it that way. Damn, you're smart. Look, I pointed out that she looked like the Dawn, and you picked it up on the rest of the way. So that means that Ashara is definitely have something to do with the battle for the Dawn.
What did he have but Robert's bastard? That the armorer's sullen apprentice was the king's son, Ned had no doubt. The Baratheon look was stamped on his face, in his jaw, his eyes, that black hair. He might be onto something here. Cersei could not have been pleased by her lord husband's byblows, yet in the end it mattered little whether the king had one bastard or 100. Law and custom gave the baseborn few rights. Gendry, the girl in the Vale, the boy at Storm's End, none of them could threaten Robert's trueborn children. Later, Catelyn will tell us a bastard cannot inherit and dismiss the concept of fearing a bastard's claim. Dario will be given to Lancel because the only cousins are through a bastard. Robb and Catelyn will discuss how it was the legal elimination of bastard status that allowed Daemon Blackfyre to contest for the throne. He was not a bastard and therefore posed a threat. All of this implies Catelyn could only fear Jon's claim if she had reason to believe he had a trueborn claim to Winterfell.
Yes. A question. Do you think before or after that letter from her sister that she knew? Do you think she suspected all along and the letter might have?
I kind of think that there's something in the letter that tells her, but that's just my gut.
Right.
The king is a fool. Is he though? I mean, we just talked about how he recognizes Joffrey as what Joffrey is and how terrible he is and so forth.
How can this boy be of me? I mean,
right. He's a little bit of a fool, but he's not that big of a fool, I think.
Yeah. If you see me swatting at something, there's a fly in here and I can't stand them.
Of these 7, only Sir Barristan Selmy is made of the true steel, and Selmy is old. Sir Boros and Sir Meryn are the queen's creatures to the bone, and I have deep suspicions of the others. The others? I noticed Varys didn't list Sir Mandon Moore as a creature of Cersei. Littlefinger strongly implies that he has lost control of his pieces that joined the Kingsguard in the past.
Right.
Tyrion is meant to be an echo of Ned, especially in Clash, and he is warned that he puts too much faith in Varys. In Storm, Varys gives explicit instructions to Tyrion that lead to the death of Tywin, a competent Lannister then serving as Hand of the King for a regime Varys is secretly attempting to destabilize. In Dance, Varys murders Kevin, a competent Lannister then serving as Hand of the King for a regime Varys is secretly attempting to destabilize. Someone, and it seems to be implied it is neither Littlefinger nor Cersei, attempted to arrange the death of Tyrion. Hilariously, the person Tyrion puts in charge of the investigation is Varys. In my opinion, Clash is an amazing book, and Storm becomes even better if Varys is the guilty party.
I love that.
Yet if what you say is true, they will only bide their time and make another attempt. Indeed they will, said Varys, and sooner rather than later, I do fear. You are making them most anxious, Lord Eddard, but my little birds will be listening, and together we may be able to forestall them, you and I. Forestall is not prevent. Varys is not trying to prevent this. He's trying to forestall it.
He wants it done when it's good for him.
Yeah, it's too soon. It's too soon.
Man, everybody's trying to kill Robert.
Who gave him the poison? Some dear sweet friend who often shared meat and mead with him, no doubt. Oh, but which one? There were many such. Lord Arryn was a kindly, trusting man. The eunuch sighed. There was one boy. All he owed John Arryn. But when the widow fled to the Eyrie with her household, he stayed in King's Landing and prospered. It always gladdens my heart to see the young rise in the world. The whip was in his voice again, every word a stroke. He must have cut a gallant figure in the tourney, him in his bright new armor with those crescent moons on his cloak. A pity he died so untimely before you could talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
Some, including the Nauticast podcast, imply Ned leaps to the wrong conclusion, but it is Varys who brings up the knight in new armor with crescent moons on his cloak. George does end the initial half of the quote when it stops describing the true killer, I confess, to describe Varys's voice, right? Much like the whole the true killer, I confess line where Littlefinger's like says that and then continues with the Littlefinger said or whatever in the middle. So
right.
So if you read through to the whip was in his voice again, yes, it's deliberate that the author is describing Littlefinger at that point. But it's not Ned who gets led by the nose to. I mean, it's not Ned who jumps to a conclusion here. It's Varys. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Varys who says it was the gallant figure in the tourney with the bright new armor with the crescent moons on his cloak. That's Varys that says that, not Ned, right? But I do agree that the author is doing the exact thing he does, where he like gives you the first half and then he pauses and then he gives you the second half, and the first half is the true correct answer and the second half is guiding you differently.
Yeah, the pause is to throw you off your track.
Well, it's so that when you go back on reread, you'll be like, oh look, he almost gave us the answer here, and then he gave us this other stuff, right? So similar to the true killer, I confess, the later on, that's what Littlefinger will say, right? Littlefinger will say, Tyrion will say, I'll give him the true killer, and Littlefinger goes, the true killer, I confess. Littlefinger like leans forward, you have me curious, or something like that, right? Anyway, the point is, the author likes to do that, where he gives you the answer, and then he kind of pauses, and then he gives you the misdirect, right?
Right.
Ned felt half poisoned himself. The squire, he said, Sir Hugh, wheels within wheels within wheels. Ned's head was pounding. Why? Why now? John Arryn had been Hand for 14 years. What was he doing that they had to kill him? Asking questions, Varys said, slipping out the door. But as Preston says, he was fighting with his wife after realizing how genetics works and wanted to take her son from her. As Preston also says, the character's conclusions are usually wrong.
Preston's a genius.
Oh yeah.
I'm one of those people that tend to. I've seen it, and I'm not going to throw shade at anybody. I love everybody's opinion, different opinions. I try to watch different opinions, but everybody tends to have that. Not everybody. Some people tend to have that my poop don't stink look on their face, especially when they're talking about other people that they disagree with.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, you've been watching Preston Jacob, blah blah blah. I mean, you're saying it as a cut down, but I don't take it as a cut down because I like Preston Jacobs.
I do too. He's one of the things that's great about him is that he knows that he's wrong, right? He even says that half the time, right? Or most of the time, he'll say, "I'm probably wrong about half this stuff," and he probably is wrong about half the stuff, right? I think he's wrong about the strangler. I think we're specifically told that the way it works is you have to put it in wine. I think we have lots of evidence that the Tyrells knew that Joffrey was going to be killed. Their behavior screams of it in the way that they don't care about the wedding at all, and the appearance of impropriety there. And then they get the next wedding right. They tell you when Loras joins the Kingsguard that he's joined the Kingsguard to kill the royal family, which is always interesting, right? It's like they specifically tell you he's there to be a Kingslayer or a Queenslayer, as I tend to think. But there's a whole implication in the story that Littlefinger wanted them aware that Joffrey needed to be killed. As I said, the Strangler has to be in wine, right? I loved that video, by the way. I thought it was great. It totally convinced me when I watched it. But then I listened to the criticism and carefully considered it, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably not right. There's just too much to the story that's about the Tyrells knowing this murder is going to take place.
Yeah. Oh, I watched the video too, and it's one of my favorite ones that he did. And I'm in agreement with him about the lemon sauce that went on the pigeon pie or whatever you call it. The distance in time when he was talking. And before he actually started because in the
I mean, his argument is that he drinks from the wine and then he doesn't immediately die, and then he takes a bite of the pie and then he does. And
it's the timing that we're given with Master Preston.
I'll grant you, but and
it does needs to watch the video and then make up their own mind.
Anyway, the point is. I do think it's important that the Tyrells have to believe that he's going to die, and that implies that they're in on the murder. So why complicate it by changing it when you're already told that it has to be in wine and that the Tyrells.
Well, I mean, it says it dissolves in wine, but I would assume that the lemon sauce.
Yeah, well, that's part of his argument. Well, couldn't they just dissolve it in wine and then pour it on the pie or whatever, right?
Here's the thing too. If it's in the lemon sauce, it's specifically lemon sauce, and who likes lemons?
Sansa. Yeah, but he wouldn't be trying to kill Sansa. That's too dangerous.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, there's a couple of ways to look at it. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it too hard,
that sounds too dangerous. Anyway, I think I like the Tyrells actually being the murderers. I do think that Tywin's probably in on it.
Yeah.
I think there's some hints that Tywin knows that's going to happen and his reaction and so forth. I think that might be the Order of the Green Hand that came up with that, or was it Preston? I can't remember. I don't know.
That might be Order of the Green Hand.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but anyway, it sure seems like Tywin knew about the boy's name, which is pretty funny.
I think the day he had to send him to his bed was probably the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, that's sort of the theory is that he came to realize that this was a mistake, that they really needed to replace him.
Well, I mean, the strongest reason for me agreeing with Preston Jacobs is that when they take Sansa and they go to the Vale, for Littlefinger's plans to have worked, Tyrion had to be
but the plan was for him to be the fall guy, right? The poisonings always have a fall guy.
That would insinuate that Cersei was in on it and knew that her. I mean, she's the one that blames Tyrion. So it's a lot to think about. I mean, like I said, everybody watch it, make their own opinion.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I get it. It's a pretty good video, and same with Quentin, right? And I like some of the things about Quentin's live I really like, right? Like his observation that they're still kind of dishonest after Quentin is dead. The burned bones prove nothing. That I especially like the idea of it's strong. Like Jamie is like, oh yeah, we'll get his bones, no problem, right? When he referring to his cousin to his aunt, he's like, oh yeah, I can definitely get you his bones. It's he's like that won't be a problem because there's any bones will do, right? And then
right, you're also told it when the baby's bones are brought to Danny, that proves nothing. I mean,
right.
And that's even in the same period.
And I was trying to get to the point is one of the things I like is the parallels with Lewin Martell, right? Who we don't think is dead.
Right.
His bones were returned to Dorne. Okay. The killer of Elia's bones, or at least the skull, was returned to Dorne, right? And he's not dead. And so I kind of like the idea of, okay, you've had a prince of Dorne's bones returned by a hand of the king. Mm-hmm. You've had the killer of a princess of Dorne's bones returned to Dorne, and he's not dead by a hand of the king. And then having the hand of the queen return Quentin's bones as a prince of Dorne to Dorne, and him not be dead too. Yeah. I really do like the triple.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board for the triple repeat.
Yeah, I like that, even though I have a hard time with that, because for one thing, I want for the dance to work, Trystane needs to, but then again, it kind of falls in the same category where Stannis just has to be believed to be dead. Quentin just has to be believed to be dead for all this stuff to work, right? So he doesn't really have to be dead for it to work. So who knows?
Right. In the triple repeat, I think that's a bit of a rope-a-dope. And I've said this before with the bed of blood and all that stuff, and I got yelled at. Just because he said it 3 times and it meant a birthing bed, the 4th time, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that. You get the 3-peat, and then you get a fake 3-peat.
Yeah.
That throws you off. So, I mean, just because we had a 3-peat already in these books doesn't mean that they're all 3 legitimate 3-peats, and then we're going to get the actual real 3-peat in the next book or the book after. We still got plenty of book to get to that actual true 3rd time. I mean, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, kind of. Right. We're over. We're past to the quarter to 1 here.
Yeah, well, 1 video a week. I tend to talk too much, but that's cool.
That's all right.
Enjoy your trip. Stay safe, everyone. We will be back Monday with, I think it's Tyrion.
It's the one where he's on his way to the Vale, and he says I never bet against my family and so forth. Right.
Which is also one of those things that just proves that George R. R. Martin will put some piece of something a couple of chapters in front. Right. And it's usually you catch it when it comes after is easier to catch. So I mean, George is a genius. But Tyrion, we'll be back next Monday. Everybody have the safe rest of the week, a safe weekend, and we will be back next Monday. I have been Old New Dude, and he has been
Richard York, Asher's Trueborn son.
Y'all have a good day. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.